So, Mr. and Mrs. Tinkess, first I want to say thank you very much for living across the street from us, because that's pretty cool.
Well,
and just to get to know you and then have you agree to come on Channel 10 for the talk show, I think it's really great. I really enjoy interviewing people that have a long history, and I think it's important to recognize them, because I think we can all learn lots from what has happened here before.
Well, I go back to 1925, and that's quite a distance back.
He was this size.
We left here in 1951. We were married in 1951, and we built our honeymoon cottage inside the Langham.
Really?
In those days, there was a big door at the back facing the alley of the Langham, and we backed the thing out of there in September '51 and drove it to Vancouver to UBC, where we parked in the Acadia camp and paid the princely sum of $6 a month for parking space.
Oh yeah?
And we lived in that thing for 2.5 years before building our own house out in Burnaby. But it was an interesting time. I wouldn't recommend it.
So you were born here in Kaslo? Yes?
Actually,
no?
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But my parents were here from the early 20s, probably 1920.
And your grandparents were here?
Yes.
Yes, they came from Saskatoon also.
And they were Tinkess?
No, well, both sets of grandparents were here. John Henry Tinkess and Margaret Ann Tinkess lived up on the end of the south end of 8th Street.
So kind of where like Vancouver Street and Langley Street, like that. Where Stephanie Leithwood lives around in that
right
area,
next
right?
door to Stephanie.
So I think it's like Vancouver.
One of the fellows, what's his name? Starts with a Q. He lives there now.
Greg Quinby.
Quinby. And that's the house that my Tinkess grandparents lived in.
Oh, really?
And they had 14 acres of fruit trees, cherries and apples.
And your dad planted those nut trees.
And they're still there, the nut trees.
Right.
The fruit
I heard
trees
all
are
about
gone.
them from Stephanie.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've gone wild, I think,
Yeah.
really. And my mother's parents' house was where Gwen Morton now lives.
And what's their names?
Louis and Russell Tinkess.
No, Kate and Will Billings.
Oh, that's right.
Your grandparents.
The Billings.
Okay.
My mother's parents were Kate and Will Billings. Grandpa Billings became the liquor vendor. He was the city electrician before that, but he was then given the job of liquor vendor and ran the liquor store as a one-man store in those days.
And where would that have been?
Right where Selkirk College is now.
Oh, really?
Where the present liquor store is was the Tinkess Brothers Shell service station. The Shell gas pumps were right out on the sidewalk in front of the present liquor store. And we lived in a little cabin facing Water Street, behind the shop. Water Street is the one by
this house on your wall?
Oh, this one on the wall is later than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's much later. But I thought I'd mention a couple of anecdotes regarding my time with the Kaslo Volunteer Fire Department. That was in the late 40s in 1950. During my time with the Volunteer Fire Department, Roy Green was the chief, and he became the mayor of Kaslo, served several terms, and the assistant fire chief was Bill Hendren, and
his half-brother, actually.
He's a half-brother, right, that's right. But there were 3 incidents that come to mind. One was on the occasion of the Nelson Diamond Jubilee. It was a big celebration in Nelson, and lots of contests and races and various old-style entertainment. One of the features was the hose reel race. Kaslo had a hose reel. Salmo and Tadnak were the only other 2.
Where's Tadnak?
Trail.
Okay.
It's up the hill where the smelter is. So the 3 hose reel teams assembled for the great race. Each team consisted of 10 men. 8 on the front of the reel. The reel I'm talking about is on the Moyer today.
Okay.
You've probably seen it.
Yes.
There were 8 men on the front, on the tongue, and a rope extending in front of the tongue. 2 men on the back. When the gun went off, we ran down this track. I don't know how far it was, not very far. The 2 fellows on the back grabbed the loose end of the hose and ran over to a standpipe, put 1 wrap around the pipe, and then coupled it onto the hydrant, and the 1 man coupled it on the hydrant, and the 2nd man turned the water on.
Okay.
In the meantime, the wagon was going down the track at a great pace. 2 other fellows broke off from the front and uncoupled the hose at the 2nd joint and put the nozzle on. And if they didn't get it on before the water arrived there,
Right.
somebody got wet. We practiced here in Kaslo for weeks before the big event, and we got it down so that we did it in 27 seconds.
Oh yeah?
The judge was watching for the water to come out of the nozzle. That's when he's hit the stopwatch. So we beat Salmo and Tadnak handily. The prize was $250 for
Wow.
the 10-man team, which was in those days a lot of money.
Yeah.
So each of us got $25.
Wow. And what'd you do with yours?
I can't remember how I got rid of it, but I'm sure I got rid of it pretty easily. Now then, toward the end of the 40s, I don't know the exact year, maybe 48 or 49, we had one of the great fires in Kaslo. The federal government wharf caught fire. A teenager from Johnson's Landing tied his old boat to the wharf, and it was Johnny Stenberg actually. And he tried to start the engine, and a short occurred, and the thing caught fire. He panicked and ran to get help, but in hindsight he realized he should have untied the boat and pushed
Right.
it away from the wharf. Unfortunately, the creosote on the wharf caught fire, and water didn't seem to touch it. We turned the hoses on it, and the forestry department sent over the fireboat. The Amabilis was the BC Forest Service boat. So we poured water onto it from both sides. The smoke was so thick you couldn't get anywhere near it because you couldn't breathe.